Hello, Mark from Rockin' Walls, certified dry stone waller with the DSWA Level 3 Advanced and also the DSC Dry Stone Conservancy Level 2 Journeyman, and also with the Dry Stone Walling Association DSWA. I'm instructor certified. We have workshops, so if you want to take a workshop, check out rockinwalls.com for scheduling spring and fall typically. So one thing I want to talk about here, working on a seating wall, and I wanted to just show you what I have going on. Then I'm also going to talk about my PPE, personal protective equipment. So let's go ahead and show you what I got going on here. So basically it's just a small bluestone seating wall, and this is going to be 24 inches. I'm going to have some true grit or gravel system underneath, similar to some of the other projects that I've done. Let's just talk about the corners here. So this is a 2-foot bump out. The wall is 2 feet wide. And this is a highly dressed bluestone. The bluestone is kind of like it's like a sandstone. So a couple things to point out here. Got the feather and wedging technique, which I'm using. I'm using, like, this stone was this was a stone that was already square and wrecked pretty much, but I had to cut it down the size, and it had some. It was like kind of like not. It was like seconds, so it had like really some bad stuff. So I do use it periodically, like with something like this, when you get my corners, to get rid of this high spot. I used a 4.5 inch double cup diamond grinding wheel in order to get that to smoother, because I really like to try to get that. Now I don't really go out of my way to do that often, but that is something that if I have to, I will, but I also try to be mindful of the dust. So for the most part, just feather and wedging technique here. Now with the corner, so once again, it's kind of like a dovetail, but it's a little tricky because working off the stone I have with my pallet. So you can see here, we talked about this with the last video, corners. So this guy here is kind of like goes across, but that one also goes across, but I'm trying to break the joint there. And this side here is kind of covered under dirt, so it really visually doesn't really matter so much. But like this one here, you can see length goes back that way, and then that side there, length goes back, and then this one's just like long here. And then those guys below go length back. So for the most part, really what you're trying to do is it's 3 sides, and you're really just trying to do your best to break your joints. So that's what's going on here. And it's tricky because it's, like I said, it's only a 2-foot bump out. But then in the corner, you need to kind of do the same thing, and then also in the back, you need to kind of do the same thing. But back there, that stone really doesn't really visually don't see it. This here, like this one, for example, this one actually goes all the way back in a bit, but you just don't see it. This one here goes back, and this one actually I think tucks underneath this one here, and this one goes back, this one goes back, and then this one goes back, and this one goes back. So for the most part, I don't know if you can see that. So this one right here, this one right here goes back. So just trying to get those, and that one goes back. So you're just trying to get those corners. Once again, you're working with the stone you have. Same thing, trying to make sure I get my lengths going in with all the stone. And this is a course with random jumpers. So for example, this section here is coursed, and then you got a random jumper, which is a big one. A lot of times, like when I first started, I didn't really realize, but once again, if you have like a larger stone, like say like a boulder, and people might say, oh, that's like a huge running joint. No, when you have a jumper, that rule doesn't really apply. So this is okay. This doesn't really matter. It's a jumper. It changes your course. And what's nice is when you're walling, you say you're working in one direction, you put in a larger stone or jumper, and then you can break it up. And then by the time you get to the other side, you can switch it however you choose fit based on the stone that you have at hand. So once again, trying to make sure I'm getting those lengths in, take advantage of those big ones. And this wall is 2 feet wide. Now, traditionally, like a wall this short doesn't need to be so wide. But for me, I like to make them a little bit wider, because when I go to put my caps on there, I like to make sure I have plenty of real estate to set. Now, when I go to set my caps, that back section, say for example, like we'll just say this is like the cap, which it's not. But if that was the cap, that section there might be lower, and that way I can just take the dirt, basically just bring the dirt grade right up into that area. But I know I have that much mass of wall. Once again, also packing or harding. So I'm just kind of grabbing the stone that I have, placing it. So all your large pieces go in first, put your large pieces in first, and then you fill with your small. You don't just take gravel and dump it in there. You'll notice, like, these are all big pieces. You don't see like just gravel. That's a no-no. This is another good section here. Larger pieces, fill it in. And then And I'm just using some of the native stone here from the area, which is kind of shaly and soft as my back wall. So this corner here, same thing, it's kind of hidden by dirt. Now I took advantage, I had once again those bigger pieces that weren't really perfect. Like this is a great example. You can just see it's got some high spots. But this one actually has a fracture crack right there, so I wouldn't even want to use that one. But on this corner here, and those areas that are like sawed, like that one has saw marks, and the one below it's pretty long saw marks. I'll take that and go back in with the torch and thermal that with the oxygen and propane. But that's the nice thing about the feather and wedging, and then it's cool too, because like that one right there down there has the factory like drill mark, which is pretty awesome. And you know, the feather and wedging, if the client's okay with that, that's a traditional technique. So I just wanted to share that. And once again, you can see it's just courses and just trying to stay on a course. And with this corner here, same thing, trying to do long, and then you know that top one goes back that way, and you can kind of see it from this side here. But I'm not really so much worried. What's nice is this side here, like that third one down it's good at the corner, it looks really good, but then by the time it gets to the back, it's not so attractive. It's kind of so. And then you know, same thing with the fourth one down, same thing, it cuts back in. But I don't have to really worry about those faces as much, because that's underneath the dirt grade. So, but trying to, you know, lengthen. So once again, pretend like you're taking, stop here a second, take your hands and you're kind of doing one of these. That's how you really are trying to do all your corners. Lock them in like this with your stone. And what's been great is, you know, like this pallet of stone I have, it's got some of these really big pieces, which doesn't happen. Normally I have to order these big sheets, and this is what I'm going to be using to make my caps. But normally I get a pallet of this, which is like 6 or 7, and that would be the stones that I use to make all my corners. But this pallet has been great. So I like to get the bigger pieces. So like this wall has got 3 of the bigger pallets, bigger stone. And then also over here I have just a pallet of the smaller stuff. So as I get further up, I can make those changes, or if I kind of need to, you know, change the size or heights. And that's what's nice with the smaller stuff. But just some really massive stuff. It's sometimes it's tricky with these pallets, because like that's a really nice stone, but it's all the way in the bottom. Well, you get to the top of the wall, where are you going to put that? So that's a challenge. I'm going to talk about some of the tools I'm using, but before I get into that, let me just kind of show you some of the personal protective gear I'm wearing. So basically, what I have on is Quiksilver lifeguard hat, safety glasses, the halo reflective, or halo band, not reflective, halo bands. It's like a runner's band. It has this piece of plastic. So if you're sweating a bunch, it's almost like a gutter and drains down the side. Something Teresa turned me on to a long time ago. The respirator, and as crazy as it sounds, this is our personal fan. Well, we're on the East Coast, like I'm in Maryland, working up in Hanover, PA. Oh, it's potato chips, Snyder's, good stuff, yeah. So, you know, having something like this with me all the time, I used to have a fan that would blow on me, but you're like walking around, it's kind of tricky. But we have, like today is gonna be like 96 degrees, and then we have the humidity. And that's just what makes it really difficult. So having all these things, and then the shirt I'm wearing is like a fisherman's shirt, UV protection with the fabric. This is by a company called Tuna. Once again, I'll put all this information, these products that I'm using, in the description below. Let's go ahead and switch around. Let me show you the tools I'm using to dress some of these stones. So, you know, also the Atlas 300 gloves. Another all-time favorite. They last forever. Just sometimes in about a week you have to wash them because they start getting a little funky. 2-pound Eastwind hammer to match the chisels. For the most part, I'm using my tracer the most. Tracer's kind of like narrow on both sides with carbide. This is really nice. When I need to use the pointer, this is the rebit, and it's kind of like a carpenter's pencil when you sharpen it. It's kind of what it looks like. Really nice. And then also the chipper when I really got to take off some real estate. So those are pretty much the 3, but for the most part, really the tracer's the go-to, and the pointer's kind of like secondary. I also use a bushing hammer from time to time from Trowel and Holden. But for example, like I'm just trying to make sure, like, well, on this wall, I'm just trying to do a high finish. So like, for example, like right here, this was kind of like a bullnose that stuck out. So I used my pointer chisel in order to really kind of knock that down. You can see that, of course, and you can see where a lot of the stones that I've worked, but over time all that's just going to weather away, so you won't really ever see it. But that way, like for example, let me just walk down here and you can just sight down. Oh, here's the bushing hammer one. You can see that right there, and that's a traditional technique. Next time you're out looking at projects or you see some stone walls, old stone walls, you'll see different types of textures. It's really cool. But looking down this wall, you can see basically I'm building this one vertical, and you can just see how square that is. And I don't have any frames, just kind of using the level. But you know, I've gotten to the point where I really try to trust my natural instincts. And you know, of course, it's nice using the level, but you know, you look down, you sight down, you see what you got going on, and if it looks good, it's good. Same thing with the corner here. So just trying to make sure visually it looks, you know, nice and square. And it's easy too, because this is 24 inches. So if I cut a stone 24 inches and make sure the stone's square, like that one there, I made sure that was square, then puts me back in check. But just want to take the time to show you this wall. Moving stone around, like for example, I have some of the stone I brought in, I've been picking through. Then I have this pile of stone here, happens to be stuff I brought in and dumped, but then I also have like some of my bigger pieces and packing and stuff like that. The site's kind of tricky and challenging. Oh, and I didn't mention, but the banker table is definitely a nice to have. Let's see, let me walk up to it. Turn this around, you can see on me. Oh, let me zoom out, see if I had to zoom out. Nope. So basically it's kind of like right below my waistline. So if you can build a banker table, pretty much below your pants line. Here, we'll measure it real quick. So we got 34 inches. So that's the height of this. Now the carpet was something that Neil Rippingale, master craftsman, Bluestone Conservancy, he had suggested. I've been kind of running that for a while. It does take some of the, it kind of cushions it, like sandwood, and that's kind of cool. Nothing fancy, but having a banker table keeps you off the ground, and you're not always on your knees, which over time that can be really, really difficult. Actually, one other thing for tunes, love my sound core with the bass. That's a nice little thing. And then of course got the Ditch Witch SK 850 Plus, which is really the equivalent of a 1050. So this is my machine to get around and move stuff. I use this to do all my excavating. My pile of dirt is over here. I got a set of forks to move the pallets, and that's kind of been the spot that I've been using to come in and out of the space. So it's been nice. So yeah, so that's just a little bit of the project, and this pallet here is the last of the 3 of the large, and I'm just kind of picking through that right now. And then I'll be working on the caps off site. So I just want to take a moment to show you guys what I was doing, kind of talk about a couple things, and that's it. So if you like this information, found it helpful, cool, what type of chisels and hammers use, not that really tools don't make you a good waller, making good choices make you a good waller, but what kind of things are you using? The protective gear, tools, you know, are you letting the stone just be a stone and putting it in a wall? Like my good friend Martin Beavers, he just picks up a stone, puts it in a wall, but he's English, you know, they're naturals. Anyway, this is a high finish wall, and that's the purpose of this wall with the stone that I'm using. And once again, I get all these crazy comments sometimes, like on my boulder structure, like, oh, that's the worst thing I've ever seen. The stone dictates the style. What I mean by that is, if this is a wedding cake, then you use the ingredients to make a wedding cake. If you're making an apple pie, like my boulders, you use that. So you have to, the stone will dictate the wall style, and you use the stone to the best of your ability, and you have to work through the material you have at hand. For example, once again, that pallet of stone, that big one's at the bottom, well, you know, yeah, sure, if I took the whole pallet apart, I could started with that, but I had 3 pallets. So now, do I use that stone? Maybe at the top. It's not the best use of it, but you gotta use what you have when you have it. You can't spend all day looking for the right stone. So just pick up a stone, put it in the wall, keep going. I hope you found this information helpful. Like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more. If you have any questions or comments, leave them. I'll do my best to respond, and I typically do. Have a good one.